There are a number of different terms used around the concept of MVP, and let's hone in a little bit on that because there's some confusion. For instance, people often talk about a proof of concept or a prototype in the same light as an MVP. Remember, the discussion here is around a mechanism to make sure that you're building and testing the right thing at the right time during your product development process. Let's start off by talking about the difference between a proof of concept, or POC, and a minimal viable product. A POC is a way of testing out your product concept without actually building the product or even an elementary alpha of the product. A POC could be a landing page, a crowdsourced campaign, or just a paper mock-up showing how your product might look and how it might work, just to get a conceptual readout of how people think about the concept. However, a POC cannot be purchased by a customer as a usable product, even if it's in its simplest form, to solve problems since it's still conceptual. An MVP can. It's a minimum iteration of a product that a customer can use to solve a problem, and in some cases, it's even willing to pay for, even in its simplest state. An MVP is also not a prototype. A prototype is the first usable product you create to understand if it's feasible and viable technically. A product is not a customer-facing product when it's a prototype. It's just really to test out all the technical aspects of the system. It's not a customer-facing product, and it's not ready to be sold or produced. An MVP is not a half-baked version of a product, or a shell, or part of a product that doesn't have an end-to-end functionality, even in its simplest form. It rather encompasses a complete experience of a solution in a minimum form. An MVP is not about creating a set of features that can hit a magic release date. While it's good to set deadlines for an MVP, it should not be guided by the deadline, but by the experience of a customer. It's not the first version of a product either. It's the first version of a solution. So what's the practical concept of an MVP that's appealing in entrepreneurial startups? It lets you start to play with the product in the market, saving time and resources in what is inevitably an iterative process as you build, test, and roll out your product. It lets a startup test assumptions about what the experience will be with real-life customers, including usability and the key elements of the product functionality, to get that live feedback on the core value proposition. In its fundamental conceptual implementation, an MVP should align the product to the customer's needs by validating each iteration with that customer. Its intent is to help to rapidly get the product that customers want and want to buy.